Hello, everyone. This is Miranda Kennedy. I'm going to be getting us started here in just a moment. We are having just a little bit of technical difficulty, so I'm going to be sharing my desktop with all of you today so that we can share with you our PowerPoint presentation. We're going to be getting started in just one moment. Doug, I want to get a sound check with you and make sure that you're also unmuted before I go to the desktop share. So let's go ahead and unmute your line. And if you want to say hello to everyone, that would be great.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, Doug. Yes, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and go over to our desktop share. We did share our captioning availability as well for those of you who might need that coming in. But I'm going to go ahead and flip over to my screen. And Doug, can you see the screen now with the PowerPoint?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started because it looks like we're right at the top of the hour, and thank you everyone for accommodating us here today. We're really glad that you all are joining us today for this DEI grantee training from our Role of the DRC series. I'm Miranda Kennedy with the NDI Technical Assistance Team, and I'm joined today by my colleague Doug Keast, our ticket coordinator. Today's presentation really represents the second in a four-part series on the role of the DRC. The first part was an introduction to the role of the DRC, looking at the systems and individual level work that the Disability Resource Coordinator will be engaged in with increasing access for job seekers with disabilities to the job centers. Our next two trainings after today's presentation will be covering the DRC role related to career pathways and the new WIOA legislation, as well as resources for Disability Resource Coordinators in their role. So during today's presentation, Doug and I will be covering the role of the DRC related to the Workforce Employment Network. And here on the screen you can see nice headshots of Doug and myself and our roles within this work. I also want to touch base on our learning objectives for today. Our expectation is that upon completion of this training, Disability Resource Coordinators will understand the guidance of the Disability Employment Initiative, as well as the Workforce Innovations and Opportunities Act and Social Security Administration with regard to employment network operation. Additionally, we hope that you will recognize your role as the DRC in employment network operation related to your employment network model. And certainly you'll be learning about some other employment network models and how other DRCs are functioning in relation to those models. And finally, we hope that you'll come away with an appreciation of how effective American Job Center customer service flow should incorporate employment network activity as just a natural part of that flow so that it's not a separate program or silo. So with that, let's go ahead and touch just really quickly on the guidance from DEI, not quickly, but the guidance from the DEI, WIOA, and SSA with regard to workforce employment networks. And for that, I'm actually going to turn it over to our ticket coordinator on our training and TA team, Doug Keast. So Doug, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thanks. And just as kind of a preliminary here, we do want to mention that according to the solicitation for grant applications with the Disability Employment Initiative, projects are required to include a plan to sustain the DEI strategies when the grant is over, and that's where this employment network all comes into this. And there is an expectation with around 5 DEI projects that the state or at least one of the regions becomes an employment network under the Social Security Administration's Ticket to Work program. So the training and assistance to the DEI projects on operating as an employment network is contracted from the Department of Labor to the National Disability Institute. And then the evaluation of the impact of the DEI projects or how you folks implement and the outcomes in operating as an employment network are provided under the Department of Labor Office of Disability Employment Contract with Social Dynamics. And a good place for us to start is with what the state DEI staff role is before we get into the DRC role. So there's just a couple of things that we want to touch on here. The state DEI staff roles, from certain perspectives, are comparable to the DRC role. They coordinate diverse partner agencies at the state level for collaborative service delivery, but the state DEI staff does this statewide rather than at the local level. State DEI staff are responsible for ensuring that the state is implementing the initiative according to the state's agreement with the Department of Labor, just as the DRC may have the role with ensuring that the pilot region's implementing according to the region's agreement with the state. The state staff provide guidance and support to the local workforce investment boards and the job center leadership on employment network operations. The state staff establish or coordinate with the employment network model that the state and the DEI project will operate with. The orientation for the DRCs and job center staff are provided under the guidance of the state DEI staff and with regard to the employment network and its integration into the job center customer service flow. And finally, the state staff support the local workforce investment board and job center leadership in establishing their employment network business plan. Moving on to the next slide. In the Workforce Investment Opportunities Act, or WIOA, there is increased emphasis on the inclusion of people with disabilities in the services of the job center. What was presumed in WIA is spelled out in more detail. In the language of the Act, it was suggested to local workforce investment boards to establish subcommittees to address disability in employment. This is in part to align service activities with the Workforce Investment Board strategic plan and to increase the collaborative response to this section of the community. The Workforce Investment Opportunities Act strengthens emphasis on physical and program accessibility by establishing guidelines in which access becomes a part of the review to meet center certification. Requirements to include and review performance for customers that have disabilities along with the performance for all job seekers, thus increasing the public visibility of the job center progress in increasing people with disabilities. The increased emphasis on unified planning is in part designed to increase the capacity of job centers to be responsive to targeted populations. Census is in partnership with the Federal Social Security Administration. Operation as an employment network will only be successful if it meets the Social Security Administration's needs as well as yours in this relationship. This is why it is important to know what SSA hopes to gain. As an employment network, you will offer services and support that assist Social Security disability beneficiaries in becoming self-sufficient. And when we're referring to self-sufficiency, what we're really talking about is moving off of their disability benefits. The expectation is there that the employment networks contribute to choice options available to all job seekers. And as a result, the SSA will incentivize the efforts of the employment networks by providing ticket payments to them as beneficiaries achieve milestones in their career activity. Finally, the ENs will coordinate their services with vocational rehabilitation agencies operating in their area. The Workforce Investment Act and WIOA establish a vision of customer service in which all agencies with an employment connection make their services available in a common location and operational flow. This establishes a common labor exchange process for all individuals that live in the community. In this vision, if there are individuals that are not served well by the labor exchange system, it's not recommended to create other programs outside of that system to respond to the needs of those customers, but instead to enhance the tools and strategies of that common system so that it's more responsive to all community members. The required participation of key agencies in the development of workforce centers in WIOA establishes the expectation that those agencies share the responsibility to serve the whole community and work out the complexities of the system behind the scenes so the customer is not burdened by them. Quite literally, this service vision makes your job center an employment network. The Ticket to Work program is a means to allow Social Security Administration to become a partner with your workforce system in expanding your capacity to serve people with disabilities and achieve outcomes that make them less reliant on the Social Security disability benefits. Ticket holders are beneficiaries between the ages of 18 and 64 and are on SSDI or SSI. When ticket holders assign their tickets to your EN and together you are successful in achieving milestones, that will make the individual independent of disability benefits, and SSA will make payments to your employment network. SSA intends that ENs use these payments to strengthen your ability to respond to more individuals with disabilities in the future. Many workforce centers have learned through previous initiatives that the changes that we make to make labor exchange system more inclusive of job seekers with disabilities, the more responsive it is for all of our customers. Through the Ticket to Work, the successes achieved with the success of a smaller population of our customers can build the capacity of the job center to respond to all of our customers more effectively. If your job center operates as an employment network and promotes itself in that manner, this sends a welcome message to the disability community. A stronger collaborative service approach with vocational rehabilitation services strengthens your shared impact on disability beneficiaries. This is both an outcome and benefit of your focus with both the employment network operation and the DEI strategies. One of the most common DEI strategies used in the DEI states nationwide is the use of the integrated resource team. This is a strategy that is strongly associated with the employment outcomes that will generate ticket payments. Isn't this pretty much the direction of the DEI already, Miranda?
Oh, absolutely, Doug. And if your employment network has integrated itself into the service flow of the job center already, and the integrated resource team strategy is being used effectively as part of that customer flow, then that IRT component is one that adds expertise on serving people with disabilities / ticket holders to the service process. And this is where the idea of the Ticket to Work becoming the rising tide that lifts all boats is born, as to quote Doug, who is always saying that to us. So really, each of those partner agencies that's engaged in the service process for your ticket holder is able to count the customer outcome in their separate performance measures.
And what about the asset development strategies? Do those fit in too?
I'm so glad you asked that, Doug. Asset development strategies, of course, are of particular importance for Social Security Administration disability beneficiaries because of their current dependence on multiple benefit systems. So support in managing those benefits as they build their personal resources and become less dependent on the benefits is recognized as essential in the successful operation of an employment network. So this makes it important for WIA outcomes also, which is one reason why WIOA is establishing financial planning and education as a recognized service. So supporting the development of increased personal assets for our customers decreases their future dependence on those benefits and on us as they hit new bumps in the road. So in many ways, we can see how the elements of the DEI, the IRT approach, asset development strategies, and of course, operating as an employment network are a great foundation upon which to enter into this new legislation with WIOA.
As Miranda mentioned, the Workforce Employment Network is most successful when every one of the agencies operating in the center benefit through the activity. When you're doing this, it establishes a flexible funding source with which partner agencies can work together to enhance the system capacity to support individuals with disabilities. For example, they could implement the DEI strategies using those resources or enhance benefit planning services available in the center. The collaborative approach supports the success of each of the partner agencies in terms of their separate performance measures. It increases customer sharing and access to tools and strategies that support individual access to career pathway opportunities. And finally, it provides a tangible means of indirectly evaluating shared impact on the disability community. Don't forget, the ticket incentives themselves reflect individuals moving off of disability benefits.
So now we're moving over to the role of the DRC and the workforce EN related to their EN model. And Doug, you come from a state that has an integrated workforce service model. What does this mean for employment network operation and DEI activity where the DRC role is concerned?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. Really, it makes sense when you look at the WIA-WIOA vision and the guidance of the DEI solicitation for grant applications for both the economy of activity and purpose of effective customer service access. It's important that the employment network be embedded within the regular customer service delivery flow, and that the DEI strategies be additional tools within that flow to enhance the service outcome. If the DRC recognizes this, she's an effective support to all of the service staff at the different points of the service flow, in their inclusion of people with disabilities and in the use of new tools that the DEI brings to their system. The DRC is an element on that customer service team with disability subject matter expertise. This means that they're in a position to support the Job Center leadership and staff in understanding how best to include job seekers with disabilities in labor exchange services. It's critical that DRCs connect beneficiaries with disability benefits to benefits and work incentive specialists and support the service team in incorporating that resource into the AJC activity. But again, coming back to your point on the rising tide that lifts all boats, which I guess is kind of something I say a lot, that this can only happen if there's a shared oversight of the employment network activity by the Job Center's partner agencies, including the folks from Vocational Rehabilitation Services. A DRC should have the skill set and knowledge to facilitate that collaborative oversight, usually on a regular basis.
And of course, we've seen in the Disability Program Navigator Initiative and now the DEI, the benefits of engaging new partner agencies into this oversight, where the impact on employment services for people with disabilities is concerned. So Centers for Independent Living, mental health agencies, and transportation providers are just a few new partner agencies that disability resource coordinators have engaged in DEI and EN activities. So really the DRC is the facilitator, increasing the range of expertise and leadership in order to improve the impact of the DEI strategies with job seekers with disabilities, including those on SSA disability benefits, right, Doug?
Right. The DRC has a central role in the internal and external outreach to job seekers with disabilities, working with the leadership of the partner agencies to support the capacity at the Job Center to serve those with disabilities who have not seen the Job Center as a resource to them in the past. Finally, with regard to the EN operation, the DRC usually plays a central role in the administration of the local employment network, or if the employment network model is a statewide employment network, the DRC will coordinate all of the EN activity with the state's EN lead. There are different employment network models in operations in different states, and it can be confusing. It's especially if you get on a technical assistance call with DRCs in other states and you're not aware of those differences. So we won't be as likely to be thrown. We'll go over some of the model differences here. There are basically three types of employment network models that we'll refer to. The first model is a state-level EN model, which is where a lead or entity at the state level establishes the employment network agreement with SSA, but supports the work incentive boards and the Job Center leadership throughout the state in their operation as an arm of the employment network. The second model is called an administrative EN, and it is pretty similar to the state EN model, but instead of working with a state agency or agencies that are established to support the local workforce investment boards and the workforce employment networks, the workforce employment networks become member organizations with a national administrative employment network that's established for the explicit purpose to serve in an administrative role for entities that wish to operate as employment networks, but not handle the administrative portions.
So Doug, I'm going to just interject here. By administrative role, you mean things like establishing the contract with SSA, working through the portal to make the assignments, and coordinating the annual reporting to SSA?
Yep, pretty much. And the third model is the Local Workforce Investment Act, or WIOA-EN model, where the board or subrecipient operating on the board's behalf holds the agreement and the job center is the EN.
Okay, wow, so this next slide looks like that old Centipede game that obviously I'm far too young to have any awareness of.
I'm surprised you're old enough to know about Centipede if you did, Miranda. Actually, it's more like Missile Command with the action going both ways.
Okay, as long as it's not a pyramid scheme.
Nope, because nobody gains unless the customer gains. In this case, the customer becomes less dependent on government support. In fact, when folks want to consider performance measures, I'm not sure what can be more tangible than incentives that are generated as a result of customers being less dependent on SSA payments. This is a depiction of a state EN model taken from our EN process guidebook. In most of the state models that we see, a state agency or group of state agencies has the contract with SSA to operate as an employment network. And then they'll turn around and support the different workforce areas within their state in their operation as an employment network. The state agency or agencies handle all of the administrative functions and support those entities that actually do the work of labor exchange, your local workforce investment areas, in their inclusion of ticket holders in their services. In this example, you can see that the centralized entity will keep an admin fee of 10%, while each of the regions will get 90% of the incentives generated from the outcomes achieved by the individuals they serve. And you know, that amount will vary, but that's the amount in this particular example.
Okay, so we know about the money part for outcomes, but what happens to get the outcomes? What does the Disability Resource Coordinator do that makes that happen? Or is it just magic? Are we just picking money up off the floor, Doug?
well, as you know, this is a business plan. And in all business plans, there are roles that must be filled in order to produce the results that are expected. The DRC in this plan, actually in all three of the models we're discussing, has a very important role. Each of our DEI projects has uniquely identified this role based on their own employment network development. But most commonly, the DRC operates as part of a service team, assuring that the job seekers included in the same services all customers have access to, in addition to the DEI enhanced strategies. With regard to assignment, the DRC provides choice options, information about timely progress, and complete the plan if appropriate. And the customer has a goal to work off of benefits. And the DRC will provide the state employment network lead the information required to make that ticket assignment. With service engagement, the Disability Resource Coordinator, as a part of the service team, will document services provided with the progress of the client, as well as coordinate this documentation with other members of the service team that provide labor exchange services. In a team service process, though, all members of the team are in a position to provide the services to the job seeker, and all can document services and progress.
And of course, we know that people on SSA disability benefits need some assistance with the SSA benefits and work incentive planning. So in this model, does the DRC ensure that this resource is available through the Job Center's activities in employment network operation?
Definitely, Miranda. You are wicked brilliant today. This is an important role for the DRC in all the service models we discussed. And the DRC makes sure that the service is available, whether it is through a partner agency like the Work Incentive Planning and Assistance or WIPA program, or by the DRC herself if she's been trained in this expertise. In addition, the DRC will support the state lead with the progress information the lead requires for the annual report to SSA. The DRC may facilitate the local oversight of the local web and job center leadership in the integration of the employment network operation into the job center and the investment of the flexible resources that come to the region as a result of their success. The administrative employment network model is similar to the statewide employment network model in that administrative functions are covered in a centralized location. However, the employment network is not based out of your state's DEI grantee or lead state agency. It'll be based out of one of the several nationally approved administrative employment networks that can take on partner entities and handle the administrative roles.
Hey, all you did was read the slide.
Well, I know, but I don't think I could have improved on how it was stated there. But I can add that if there is a state or region that's interested in learning more about available administrative employment networks, we encourage you to talk to Dennis Bourne of Maximus, who is our connection to the administrative employment networks.
So it sounds like an administrative model isn't much different than a state employment network model as far as a local workforce board or a DRC would be concerned. You're engaging ticket holders in your job center services the same way, just reporting to a state-level entity or a national organization for assignments in progress, depending on which model you're in?
Yeah, in the most simple terms, that's it. Of course, different states and different admin ENs will offer different types and levels of support to the regional efforts, but there you have it. Just like the state employment networks, the success of the administrative EN is dependent upon the success of the regional job center. So it's in the best interest to provide support and technical assistance to you. Just like in the state employment network, the DRC is the ideal position based on expertise and role to support the local workforce investment board in integrating the employment network activity in the service flow and in the activity of the board's strategic plan. A good DRC will support the active oversight of all of the job center partner organizations and other community stakeholders in the investment of the ticket payment so that it will have the strongest possible benefit for job seekers with disabilities.
And voila, you have a common resource coming to a system of multiple parts around which a common objective and strategy is developed to serve the community. There's no other resource coming to this system that's not tied to one program or another's funding stream. This really is a perfect way to climb to a higher level of enlightenment within the WIA vision and now, of course, WIOA's vision.
Wow. I think I'm being blinded by the light now. Okay, here's another picture from our guidebook. In this example, the local workforce area, the board and job center, are the employment network. The services they offer through all of the job centers and satellite offices in the region are synonymous with the employment network operation.
And now we get it all in one package. The local region has the agreement with SSA. They make the annual report to SSA, process assignments, and still provide all of the services that are intended to raise the standard of living of disability beneficiaries above welfare dependency.
Yes, and in most DEI workforce employment networks, it is the DRC that rides herd on all of these processes. In addition to the development of a work plan with the beneficiary and tracking process through whatever ticket tracking process is locally developed, the DRC usually handles the contract requirements and communication back and forth with the Social Security Administration and with the portal used for assignment and tracking. This includes the role you described above in facilitating collaborative oversight and investment in the shared activity. Now, a final word on the importance of the integration of the employment network into the customer service flow for the overall service process. We are not the road, we make the road stronger.
It's so funny that you say that, Doug, because my variation on that for the DRCs is you aren't the bridge, you're the bridge builder. I guess we really like our transportation analogies. So I just have to ask, are you going to read this slide again?
Yes, I am. This is important, so hang on. Neither the DEI nor the WIA-WIOA vision for employment network operation suggests that this is a separate program with separate services and separate staff. It is intended that care is taken by the job center leadership to place the DEI strategies and the steps of the employment network operation within the natural service flow of customers that come into the center. The DEI strategies enhance those services that all job seekers receive in your agency. As a result of the outcomes that your customers that are disability beneficiaries achieve, flexible resources come to your region to increase the capacity of your job center to respond to more job seekers with disabilities in the future. And now we get into one of the key areas critical to the effective inclusion of individuals with disabilities in the job center services, especially those who have not seen the job center as a resource to them before.
Marketing. This is one of my favorite areas, building the public awareness of the job center's ability to include everyone in labor exchange. How cool is that?
and for the portion of job center outreach that's relevant to the success of their employment network, the expertise of the DRC places them in a position of leadership in pulling the resources and message together. We'll talk today about two directions for outreach, internal and external. Miranda, as a marketing aficionado, can you tell us what internal marketing is?
Okay, well, I'm not sure I'd call myself an aficionado, but I will take a stab at it. So with internal marketing, we're talking about the degree to which all of our service team members are prepared to engage individuals who disclose disability fully into the services available and support the ticket assignment as well. So the employment network operation that is integrated into the service system is successful, but does not impact the service flow. It's about the internal identification of the job center as an employment network in visible ways, and also about messages that communicate that disability disclosure is comfortable and may benefit the job seeker. You know, it's also about looking at the existing media and materials within the job center to assure that this communication is inherent there as well. Is the job center prepared to answer those questions that SSA disability beneficiaries may have about the impact of income on their benefits or health insurance? How will they know that we're prepared to support them in these areas unless we can communicate that in a way that our customers get this information?
Okay, I guess I don't need to read this slide.
I guess not.
So, with a quick paraphrase of everything that Miranda just said.
Only not as good.
And that goes without saying. The DRC, based on her disability expertise, will facilitate the job center leadership in identifying how customers disclose in the center to assure that the process is effective in generating connection to beneficial supports to them and to the connection to possible ticket assignments. In determining how disclosure is encouraged, it is important that customers are aware that they have an opportunity to disclose and that it may be to their benefit. With the job center leadership, the DRC is helpful in ensuring that customers know that they can request accommodation. And the DRC is important in assessing the comfort and capacity of the service delivery team staff and including individuals with disabilities in service. And finally, in determining how the MIS system can support the ability of the DRC to query for potential ticket holders. From this internal assessment, the DRC may develop and recommend new signage that improves internal communication to customers. They could revise or amend existing job center promotional and outreach materials to include communication that engages job seekers with disabilities more effectively in the services and includes the value-added tools that your region has developed with your project's efforts. It evaluates staff comfort and knowledge and develops a strategy to increase their awareness and understanding of disability and confidence in their capacity to include people with disabilities in career building and labor exchange. If you want to look at beginning a strategy using the Management Information Services, or MIS, to check ticket assignability among customers that disclose the disability, and consider how the DRC can become a part of the ongoing leadership discussion and planning where employment and disability are concerned. Now, let's look at a few scenarios to see how the DRC can address situations that come up in the center. These are real-life occurrences in DEI projects, but the names and locations have been changed to protect the innocent. Miranda, I'm tossing the first one to you. You are DRC Val. DRC Val has the sense that AJC staff see her as the employment network, and they have developed the habit of referring everyone with a disability to her to provide the labor exchange services.
Oh yes, this is always a challenge with just about every DEI project. In fact, the Navigator Initiative struggled with this as well. So if you're experiencing this, you're not alone. This is one of the tendencies that program-centered service delivery has that can push the DEI and EN operation into operation as a separate program or silo.
And this is bad?
Well, you know, it's certainly not good, so yes, it's bad. One more program for a job seeker to know and remember on top of all the others that they have to negotiate, how can that not be bad for customer service? The DRC Val is very insightful here, as are so many of our DRCs, and will adopt a strategy with the support of the Job Center leadership to build the confidence and comfort of the service delivery team staff in including individuals with disabilities. The first step will be to survey the staff on their interests with regard to disability information. Val recognizes that the service team meets regularly every Wednesday for an hour, so she arranges with leadership to have 25 minutes of one of those meetings each month to address an area specific to disability and service. In those areas of interest identified by staff in the survey, which is important because that's responsive to their need, Val will bring in community partners to address the topics, so staff will not only get good information, but they also will be introduced to an ongoing resource to them on this topic. In addition, Val will also include important topics such as DOL guidance for inclusion of people with disabilities in service and disclosure, the state's methods of administration, use of the available assistive technology, and of course the importance of financial literacy for all of our customers, including people with disabilities.
Great approach. Address a frustration by increasing the quality of information to your colleagues and building capacity and confidence at the same time.
So now it's your turn, Doug. DRC NED's assessment of the Job Center service area results in the recognition that there is no indication that there is a benefit to disability disclosure or that a person can request an accommodation to access services.
Well, as DRC NED, I think a great place to start would be to be sure that there's awareness of the importance of this service. A good first step might be to use DRC Val's approach to get on the agenda of a team meeting and with leadership support address the guidance in WIA Section 188. And we've just learned that 188 for WIOA is expected to come out in July, so hold on to that. But to look at this with regard to communication to customers regarding disclosure and the opportunity for accommodation if needed. These events with some facilitation usually result in thoughtful discussion and how we can communicate these messages to our customers and result in suggestions for signage, messaging, and scripts for workshops and orientations. Given the right information, we tend to come to the best decisions. If needed, NED could include a colleague from a community access board or Center for Independent Living in the discussion. Good?
Good.
Okay, your turn again. DRC Julie requested to access PII on new customers that disclose disability as they come into the center, so she can check their ticket assignability in the EN portal operated by SSA. This request is denied.
So that request for personally identifiable information is denied. You know, that's unfortunate, but it does happen in many of our locations. Having the access to the identification of those that disclose through MIS is the strongest internal marketing tool a DRC can have in identifying those that may have available tickets. Sometimes, though, there are decisions made at high levels that a person working with the EN may not have access to the PII needed to allow the check with the portal to tell if a person has an available ticket. So the best alternative for DRC Julie in these situations is to focus on the external marketing strategies that we're about to address.
Great segue, Miranda. Why don't you take the lead on this next slide?
That would be my pleasure. So external marketing is our opportunity to raise the awareness of the community at large that your job center is prepared to include all individuals in career services offered, and it's beefing up its capacity through value-added tools to increase its effectiveness. The objectives of the DEI and the Employment Network is to increase the capacity of the job center to include all job seekers. And we learn by doing, but we can't experience this growth if we don't reach out to new customers that believe that the job center is not prepared to work with them. So external marketing requires a deliberate strategy to promote this information in places where individuals with disabilities trust the information. Like any new business, it's going to take time to develop a reputation.
Again, the DRC's expertise places her in a unique position to facilitate the development of effective external marketing strategies. A good place for the DRC to start is with a good review of the outreach materials currently utilized by the Job Center. It may be determined that some of the materials will be enhanced with mention of additional value-added services. For example, the disability benefits planning assistance. And that the Job Center operates as an employment network for some of these materials that will be distributed to targeted locations. The DRC will also review all Job Center information that's web-based in order to see how the same information can be featured there and linked to partner agencies that have a strong connection to disability services and individuals in the community that have disabilities. Since some of your partner agencies add disability and service expertise, they are also experts in getting the right information to individuals with disabilities for the purpose of supporting their individual success. Working with them to disseminate information and meet with people with disabilities to promote the Job Center services is a valuable time investment for DRCs. A featured best practice of DEI-ENs is the use of outreach events developed with partner agencies to provide accurate information to people who are on Social Security Administration disability benefits about employment and the impact of income on their benefits. This opportunity to answer their questions and address the many myths about work and benefits is important. As these questions are answered, opportunities to pursue employment are opened. The DRC is instrumental in developing these events and in engaging the SSA benefits and work incentive planning resources in this discussion.
Sorry, I was on mute. Okay, so Doug, it's your turn on the scenarios. DRC Frank recognizes that there are not very many potential ticket holders coming into the Job Center right now. What are some of the things that he can do to change this?
Well, based on the DRC role described on the last slide, DRC Frank is well advised to beef up his website, his material supply, and take the show on the road. Because he's a DRC, though, he has partners in this, and he won't need to be making cold calls. Frank should consult with his partner agencies with regard to locations where he can leave materials, places where individuals with disabilities might meet, where he can make connections, and events coming up where he might make presentations. It'll be a good practice for Frank to start promoting and holding community events to provide information about work and disability benefits so individuals can get their questions answered. If Frank hasn't had the benefits planning training himself, then it's very important to engage somebody with this expertise to present this information and answer questions that people will have. At the end, Frank can then make connections with those attending that would like to access career services.
So with these community events, how will Frank address choice? After all, there are other employment networks around.
Well, let's look at this next scenario and see if the discussion on that helps. DRC Holly has had difficulty with another employment network in her community who's running a negative marketing campaign in competition with the Job Center to ticket holders.
Oh, I see where you're coming from. Holly's running into someone who's taking this choice and competition thing really seriously. Well, I know that the first instinct for Holly is to fight fire with fire, but that doesn't help her customers with their decisions and in meeting their objectives. Well, you know what I'd do if I were Holly? I'd engage this competitor to join me in planning a community event and include other employment networks in the planning as well. Having an opportunity to engage these customers together will help all of us in addressing the service and choice issues for people in our community and make the choices for them easier to make. With so many ticket holders around, there's no sense in fighting over them. I see what you mean. Okay, it's your turn again. So DRC Joe has been asked by his local WIB, Workforce Investment Board, about plans to raise the visibility of the region's job centers during the October National Disability Employment Awareness Month activity. At the same time, he's been in communication with the Center for Independent Living and the Older Worker Program regarding ideas to engage individuals in their service populations who are SSA disability beneficiaries. So Doug?
Well, maybe this will sound like a broken record, but here's another opportunity to stage an outreach event to raise awareness. We'll promote it jointly with the Independent Living Center and the Older Worker Program as a National Disability Employment Awareness Month event. The visible promotion by the Workforce Employment Network provides a natural opportunity to draw attention to the job centers in the area with regard to supporting individuals with disabilities in meeting their career objectives.
Okay, I can see now that we're starting to fall into a pattern, but once you have internal marketing in place, as well as the materials and information at hand, this gets to be your focus, identifying opportunities with your partners to get the right information to the right people on time. Doesn't the ability to pull this all together place a lot on the Disability Resource Coordinator?
If the region has hired a natural networker for their DRC, then they've engaged somebody that's going to enjoy this kind of work. But yes, you have identified a skill that a DRC will need to develop if she doesn't have it already: facilitation skills. These include the ability to bring people together, to build their skills in engaging individuals with disabilities, establish common marketing and service objectives, and build their shared investment in a service delivery system that is efficient and effective in including individuals with disabilities in employment. This builds the employment network, which in turn rewards you, or rewards your shared leadership, with additional resources to continue to enhance your regional employment network capacity. When the first DEI grants were awarded, the idea of sustaining the DEI strategies post-grant through the Tickets to Work was the theory. No one was demonstrating yet that it was possible to do this. DEI pilot regions in the first 3 rounds are now demonstrating that integrating the employment network operation can sustain everything that a local workforce investment board would wish to achieve through the Disability Employment Initiative after the grant is over, maintaining the DEI strategies, boosting outcomes for job seekers with disabilities, sustaining disability and employment expertise on the service team through a DRC, and applying the additional flexible funding to fill additional service gaps identified through the collaborative leadership.
So Doug, I'm going to go ahead and take it away and take us over to some final thoughts here. So to sum up, because we've covered quite a bit of ground in the last 50 minutes, what did we cover exactly? What we covered was the vision of effective employment network operation in an American job center. We also touched on employment network models and the role of the Disability Resource Coordinator in each of those models. So hopefully you saw yourself reflected and now have a better understanding as well of what some of your peers across the country are doing in terms of their role and function in their different models. We also talked about the importance of the Disability Resource Coordinator role to the internal and external outreach that's important to effective employment network operation, and that's going to be consistent no matter which model you're operating in. So we covered quite a bit of ground there. Now what? Well, we don't have much time left with us here today, so as we're wrapping up, we do want to put on your radar, and hopefully you've already seen it pop up in your Outlook calendar from Laura Glenick, that our next Technical Assistance Office Hours is going to be on Friday, June 26th at 3 o'clock Eastern. All of our stuff is at 3 o'clock Eastern because we have states and projects all across the country. So we're going to be talking further about this topic and also the role of the Disability Resource Coordinator in general. And we know you all have a lot to say about that, your own experience, some questions you might still have, some insights and wisdom you'd be interested and willing to share with your peers, because that's why we all hop on those TA office hours, is to hear from each other. So we'd encourage you to come with questions, thoughts, ideas, and engage in a robust discussion with us. So that'll be on Friday, June 26th, and we will continue this conversation there. So you've got a little bit of time to process what we've covered here today and talk about it amongst yourselves. You can certainly reach out to your TA liaisons or your peers in your own state or project or your state leadership as well. So just some final thoughts here before we get to our additional resources and really wrap it up. But these are just two quotes that Doug and I had. And I don't know, Doug, would you like to do yours, the first one, and talk about that for a second and why you shared it on this training? And then maybe I'll touch base on mine, the second one.
Well, yeah, sure. I know it looks like a challenge, and we're kind of feeling like we're swimming upstream, especially for new DRCs that are coming on board. But the thought that we'd like to leave you with on that is that it's not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It's because we do not dare that they're difficult. And you know, sometimes it's just important to once you recognize what needs to be doing, what you need to be doing to just start addressing it, and then they become less difficult because you're doing it. And hopefully the tips and guidance in these webinars will be helpful to you to support you in being able to dare. Miranda?
Exactly. Well, and it's not just, today's not just a drop in the bucket webinar. You know, we've got all kinds of training and TA support available to you in addition to what we just covered today. This is just one part of the conversation. A large part of these national webinars, the DEI trainings for all of you, is to get us all on the same page and kickstart some of this discussion, or maybe even just validate what you're already doing, which many of you might be thinking, yes, this is just very validating for what I'm doing, which that's great too, because we can all use validation, right? So my quote that I chose for the end of today is from George Bernard Shaw, and it's, "The reasonable man or woman adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man or woman." So of course, with this, not encouraging you to be purposefully difficult or, you know, unreasonable, but at the same time, you know, this is systems change we're engaging in. You're living in a world where it's program world. If you adapt yourself to program world, we're not going to see the outcomes that we need to see with the DEI intervention strategies or with the employment network operations. So you are having to walk a line where maybe you aren't perceived as being the most reasonable person because you're challenging the things and the way things are right now and trying to make them better and increase access, and it's adjustment period for folks. And there might be a few of you who this is easy and a piece of cake. Don't rub it in everyone else's face, because it's pretty challenging for most of you out there, and we get that. That's pretty typical, and it's why you're doing this work. If it were easy, we wouldn't need you, but we need you, and you need to be, in your mind, a little almost unreasonable, but with that balance of you're getting people to come around to a new way of reasoning, which is going to be really beneficial for everyone. And one of the things we see is that, you know, as you're challenging folks, you don't want them to dig their heels in so hard that they're not moving with you and, you know, changing things. So it really is a balance of diplomacy that you're having to do, and it takes some serious skills, which is why you all in your role as DRCs are so crucial. It's the linchpin for this work that we're doing. And we just really want you to know that we recognize that, we value that role you're performing, and we hope that today's training has been helpful for you, as well as our intro to the DRC role and the other trainings that we're currently in the process of developing. And this is just part of a discussion that we're having. So with that, with hopefully those words of inspiration, maybe? I don't know, something to think about. There are some additional resources here. I'll also be, this PowerPoint itself will be available for you to download at the end of today's training. And you can always contact Doug or myself, and in addition to accessing us on the TA office hours or these trainings. We really enjoy hearing from you, as does the rest of the TA team. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We'll go ahead and wrap just a little early. I'm going to throw up the, I'm going to transfer the PowerPoint here so you guys can download it off your desktop directly if you'd like to do that. And additionally, as you're exiting today's training, if you would just take 30 seconds and fill out the post-training survey, we really appreciate your feedback. Again, sorry about a little bit of our technical difficulties in our innovative desktop sharing strategy. Hopefully it worked okay. You can tell us about that in your comments if you like. We'll get that figured out for next time. So with that, thank you everyone for the work you're doing out there in the field, and we'll look forward to being on with you again as we move forward with this work we're doing. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you, Miranda. This was fun. Look forward to talking to you all soon.